Hi, everybody. Welcome to Crashes and Taxes. I am your host for this podcast edition of Crashes and Taxes, Rebecca Walser. And my producer said to me, Rebecca, we've grown the podcast quite a bit. We need to tell the new listeners who you are. So I take it for granted that everybody that I'm speaking to knows who I am, what my background is. And, my producer's like, no, that's not the case at all. We're growing our followers every day. So first of all, I'd like to encourage you that have been with me for a while, if you could give me a subscription. If you like the podcast, we love the 5 stars. 4 stars works too, but we really want to be a great, highly rated financial podcast. So if you could give us a rating, if you're religiously following us, you must like us. So that means 5 stars, right? Rate us 5 stars if you're, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you get notifications. We do 1 podcast a week, so content should always be coming out. I was out of the country. I did go to Mexico, so that's why we've been in reruns for a week or so. I apologize, but I needed a break. This has been a really crazy year, as you guys can all imagine. We've all gone through it together. I hate when they say that we're all in this together. Do you remember those commercials that were coming out right when the virus was really we were locked down beyond the 2 weeks they originally said, and all these things, billboards and everything are popping up. We're all in this together. These healthcare commercials, we're all in this together. I'm just thinking, I don't want to be in this together. I want to be back to life together. But we're all in this together is definitely a saying. And so I too needed a break just to get away from this craziness. And what do you know, come back to work and things could not get more crazy. The election could not, I just can't even imagine what else could possibly happen. Knock on wood, something will happen now that I'm saying this. They could make this any crazier than it's already been, this wild ride we've had for 2020. But today, specifically, before I get into the topic, that is one of the most important topics in all of the topics we're going to talk about. This is going to be one of the top 3 podcasts that is going to be so important. What is the worst kind of debt you can have? The worst kind of debt. So we're going to digest this today on this podcast, but I'm going to come back to that. And let me just give, for the new people that are joining, who am I? What is my background? So again, we are video recording this podcast as well. If you want to watch the video, please watch the video. But obviously Apple Tunes, Spotify, the Google Play, all that, we're everywhere that iTunes or that podcasts exist. Rebecca Walser, I am a certified financial planner, a tax attorney, and really I consider myself a wealth manager. So I have built a wealth management practice. You can see the Walser Group behind me, and we are all about really coming up with a robust plan that you control your wealth. You are in control of your wealth. I have so many people that come through this door every single day that, say, I'm doing this, and this, and I say, great, but there's a deficiency here, and here, because you're not going to be able to control your wealth and the plan that you've got. So trust me, if it's not a plan where you can control the tax implications, you can control the volatility implications of what you're limiting or you're expecting from your portfolio. We are looking at everything and every asset class always from 2 perspectives: the perspective to grow and to maintain, so that volatility is a mix in that factor, and from a tax perspective. It doesn't do me any good to build you even $1 billion of wealth if the government can turn around and take away more than half. So the tax implications for those of us in this building wealth mode that we're still in, and even those that are close to retirement, if you're super close to retirement, take the opportunity, find out, contact our office, contact another advisor that you trust with your life, and find out, is there moves I should be making strategically with these next couple of years? We're running out of time to get everything to be a fully controlled plan and controllable, and not up to the government and what's going to happen with the government in the future. So that's who I am. I have been in finance since the 90s. I will not date myself further than that. I worked internationally in international finance for PricewaterhouseCoopers for years at IBM, AT&T, then became a tax lawyer, went to Florida for law school, went to NYU in New York City for my master's advanced tax law degree, and my undergrad's in finance. So I am all things tax and finance, and that is what our practice is in a nutshell. So let's get to this topic now of what is the worst kind of debt you could possibly ever have. And obviously, everybody immediately comes to mind credit card debt. Credit card debt is the worst. It's, I don't really even actually know what the going credit card rates are right now. I don't use credit that way. I basically, use it and pay it off on a every month basis. So I don't pay credit card rates. But I think that the rates are still in the teens. So everyone automatically says, oh, credit card rates are in the teens. It must be credit card debt is what you're talking about. No, it's not credit card debt. Not a fan of credit card debt. Our clients don't usually have debt problems by the time they get to us. They've established some kind of wealth. They have extra cash. They're looking to do investments and come up with a financial plan to be successful. So we're not usually dealing with clients that have credit card debt. I know Dave Ramsey's entire practice was built around his own personal financial situations that he went through, that he learned his own lessons and really decided, you know what, hey, you've got it. You can't use credit cards. You got to get out of debt. Don't drink the $5 lattes, save. And, he has built a very successful practice, but persona and, advisory kind of program around credit card debt and debt in general, getting out of debt. The other thing people seem to think is a really terrible, horrible debt based on the fact of how fast everybody sort of agrees it must be paid off is the mortgage. You think about this, the closer you go to retirement, the more you decide, hey, I don't want to have this monthly bill. I have to pay every month. I'm going to stop working. I'm going to stop having active earnings from my work product. So I don't want to have this mortgage. And so it's kind of interesting that in America, it's universally accepted good financial sound advice to pay off your mortgage before retirement. I always have people coming over, and at least several times a week, I hear somebody saying, yeah, I'm going to pay off my mortgage within the next 7 years. And obviously that's a lot easier to do today with the low rates that we have. But you would think that mortgage debt would be maybe, if credit card debt isn't the worst, that maybe mortgage debt's the worst because everybody agrees that they want to get rid of that before they retire. But no, that's not it. Student loan debt, not it either, because a lot of people think, gosh, I got to get rid of this student loan debt. It seems like it's never going anywhere. But the rates on student loan debt has been low for years, and it is not as bad as the credit card rates. So if it's not credit card debt, and it's not student loan debt, and it's not your mortgage, what's left? Well, we've got car notes, car leases, and that's not it either. So the worst kind of debt is the kind of debt that people don't even realize is a debt. So let me explain this to you. Let's pretend that you needed money and you called me up and you said, Rebecca, I need $10,000 and I really just need it and I just can't get it anywhere else. I need it really fast. I need $10,000. If I said to you in response, I said, okay, you need $10,000. Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and give you your $10,000 that you're asking me for. But tell you what, I don't know how much I want to charge you for this $10,000. You're a friend. I've got plenty of money right now. I don't need it back right now. But someday in the future, I might need quite a bit. So in the future, I'm going to call you up and I'm going to see how well you've done with this $10,000 loan. And I am going to tell you then how much you have to pay me back once I see how well you've done with the loan. And even if you haven't done well with the loan, you still have to pay me back the $10,000 plus interest. That's going to be the deal. How many of you would actually take that loan? How many of you would take a debt that accept or go into debt on a loan that you had no idea what the repayment terms were? Clearly, I'm being sarcastic here, and it's odd for me to pause on the podcast, but the truth is, we do this every single day as Americans, and it's completely normalized, and we think of it as normal, and we don't think of it as debt. So what am I specifically talking about? The worst kind of debt you can have in the United States of America. Drum roll, please. It's this. This is an example, hypothetical example. I have somebody who makes $100,000 a year in salary. We're using that because it's an easy number. They make $100,000 a year, and they are fully deferring their 401k. We're going to round it up to 20,000 just so it's not some crazy 19,000 number that's uneven. So they are putting 10% or actually 20% of their $100,000 away and deferring it into their work 401k. Now, on $100,000, the tax rate for this person is also 20%. So they are deferring 20%, putting $20,000 away, and they are at the same time in a 20% tax bracket. So if I'm in a 20% tax bracket on $100,000, my tax bill is $20,000. I owe $20,000 to the federal government currently today. But I deferred $20,000. I deferred it. I didn't pay it. So I did not count that as taxable income. So now my taxable income, because of the deferral of $20,000, goes down to $80,000. And on $80,000, I only owe $16,000 of tax, which means I have $4,000 of taxable current tax due that I did not pay, but that I deferred instead into a 401k. What do we call it when we have something that we have to pay later? We take something from somebody that we have to pay later. It's a loan. So that $4,000 is actually a loan from the U.S. Treasury Department. They're letting me keep money I otherwise owed them, which means they're loaning me back my $4,000 of taxes that I did not pay. Now, that $4,000 of taxes that I did not pay, what are the terms of repayment? What are its terms? And that's just the point. We don't know. We don't know what its terms are. Everybody has taken the gamble that they will go into retirement with pre-tax 401k or IRA money or 403b or TSP or any other acronym, 3-digit acronym that you can think of. Everybody has sort of said, yeah, this is a good deal, but is it a good deal? Or is it the worst kind of debt that you can have? The worst kind of debt you can have is the debt where you don't know its terms. And the fact that it is owed to a sovereign like the U.S. Treasury Department, which can invade your accounts and freeze your assets. So you don't want a debt lender, a debt holder that can freeze your assets, garnish your wages, and basically seize your bank account. So the government being a creditor is not the greatest thing in the world. But the other part of the problem, besides it just being the government as the creditor, is we don't know the terms. Let's say that we're successful and we grow this $4,000 by a factor of, 10 over the next 30 years. So now our $4,000 is $40,000. At the time when I paid it, my tax due was at an effective rate of 20%. I could have paid $4,000. I've now grown the $4,000 to $40,000, and it's 30 years later. And my tax rate, I was counting on my tax rate to be less than 20%, because the whole point of deferring is don't pay the tax now while you're making a substantial amount of money. Wait till you retire. You won't have that active source of income coming in any longer. And because you're retired and you're in a lower tax bracket, you'll pay less in taxes. But now I have $40,000 of investment that has grown, and I have to pay tax on all $40,000. Remember, my original tax was $4,000, and now I have ballooned the investment to $40,000. I have to pay tax 100% as ordinary income on all this $40,000. Now, if this $40,000 comes out at anything less than 20%, I'm still paying a total more than the $4,000. So let's say the tax is a simple 10%. Then my original bill would be $4,000 that I deferred for 30 years, and I am walking in with a $36,000 profit. So that would be a good thing. And that's what most Americans think are going to happen. But unfortunately, because of the time period that we're in, between 2020 and 2030, we have over 70 million baby boomers that are going to be hitting what we call FRA, full retirement age, and retiring. The Congressional Budget Office did a study in 2008 on the tax impact of the retirement only of the boomers. What is the effect of taxation on all Americans from the retirement of the baby boomers between 2020 and 2030? And specifically, the boomers between 2022 and 2027, in that 6-year period of time, 2022 to 2027, 50 million people are going to retire and reach their full retirement age in that 6-year period of time alone. 50 million people are going to go from paying into the system and supporting the payroll taxes that support Social Security and Medicare to stopping paying. And 50 million of them are going to do this in a 6-year period of time, the same 6-year period of time, 2022 to 2027. And then they are rightfully going to go onto Social Security and Medicare themselves. And this demographic shift, which is the largest demographic shift in the history of recorded time, not just America, but recorded time. This demographic shift is going to put so much pressure on the pay-as-you-go system. Now, don't get me wrong. We did have and do have a $3 trillion surplus from what we've collected in Social Security payroll taxes between 1935 and what we are currently paying out in 2020. So we do absolutely have $3 trillion that has been overfunded into the system versus what's been paid out. But I want you to understand that there are no dollars in the Social Security Trust Fund. The Supreme Court ruled, and this is the law of the land to this day, that the federal government could use the trust fund dollars for anything that they wanted whatsoever, that it was a tax like any other tax, but that it needed to be accounted for separately. So we've had a separate accounting for both Social Security and since 35 and Medicare, which came out in 65. We've had separate and accounting federally, and that's why you see that $3 trillion has been collected since 1935 for Social Security, but not spent on Social Security benefits, and that's why you see this surplus of $3 trillion. But the money has been spent on other things, and the Treasury has written what we call STNs or STNs, special Treasury notes, and those STNs basically mean that when the government's revenues no longer equal the necessary distribution, that the federal government will make up the difference. So in other words, there is no dollars in the trust fund, and as these boomers retire en masse, the difference has to be made up by the federal government. The federal government only has 2 ways to make up money or create money. That is 1, by borrowing through debt, and 2, by raising taxes. Borrowing through debt is going to be less and less of an option, especially while we're in the midst of coronavirus still. We've had $6 trillion between the Federal Reserve and the CARES Act of funding, and we actually need more stimulus now in order to get through the end of the year because our economy is not completely reopened and back to normal. So debt is not going to be much of a possibility. To continuously bring on new debt is not possible. At some point, taxes have to be raised, and the Congressional Budget Office did a study in 2008, and they gave us projections. They said specifically that the 10% lowest rate is projected to more than double to 25%, and the middle class 25% rate is projected to go to 63%. The top rate would go to 88%. And this is not shocking to a tax lawyer like me, because we've had tax rates throughout the history of America that have been greater than 50% at the top end or greater. 61% actually is the top end average. Then you had Ronald Reagan come along in 86 passed, 87 went into effect, where the tax rates got dropped back down to 28% at the top end. And we've had low rates ever since then. We haven't had them that low, but for the last 30 years since 87, basically, we've had extremely low taxes. And we've gotten used to that. And we've thought that that's normal. And we've thought that everything, we'll retire and we'll have a lower rate. Well, unfortunately, we've deferred taxes since Reagan at extremely low rates. And since Trump now, we have the lowest rates again since Reagan under Donald Trump. And those rates are not going to continue. So it's very possible that that $4,000 that I deferred that became $40,000 could easily be taxed to me at an effective rate of 30%, meaning that I owe 30% of $40,000, or I owe $12,000 for delaying a tax of $4,000. And so the worst kind of debt to go into retirement with, or to have in any way at all, is a debt that is, 1, controlled by the federal government, who can and will seize your assets and freeze your money if you don't pay it, and 2, the one that's owned to the federal government because they get to change the rules. They get to raise the tax rates at any time for any reason or no reason whatsoever. That's how it works. And so the federal government is going to be pushed into a situation with the retirement of the baby boomers where taxes must go up. The Congressional Budget Office gave us a projection in 2008 and said that the middle class tax bracket, just based on the retirement of the baby boomers and how it affects and implicates Social Security and Medicare alone, is looking to be somewhere in the neighborhood of the 60% range. I don't think that it's necessary to go to 60% for you all to realize what I'm saying. Do not go into retirement with a debt that could be substantially more. So let's say you have $1 million portfolio in an IRA and it's all pre-tax. If you're paying 60% of that to the government, that is $600,000 and you only have $400,000. That is a non-winnable debt situation. You do owe the federal government on the money that is sitting inside of your IRA or your 401k. It is a debt that you do owe and you will pay. There is no way when you retire to get out this money without paying the tax. So seriously consider, should I build pre-tax wealth in 2020? Or should I not? Nobody is anti-market and saying not to leverage the 401, but inquire on the Roth 401. Is there a Roth 401 that you can be deferring into paying the tax now and letting your company give you a match? The worst kind of debt is the kind that is not controllable and where the debt holder, the lender, can raise the terms at any time. And that, my friends, belongs to one group of people, one entity, and that is the United States federal government, U.S. Treasury Department, and Internal Revenue Service. I think that does it for about now. The worst kind of debt you can ever have. Really seriously consider reevaluating your entire financial plan if this has been built in, because it is not the time to do it in 2020. Taking all of your input to heart. Thank you for all of your comments on crashes and taxes. We love to hear it. Keep it coming.